In this video, I'm going to be doing a fitting for a 14th century kirtle, often referred to as a Gothic Fitted Dress or a GFD. I also refer to it as a self-supporting kirtle. So one thing to understand about what this is in period, this is a type of dress that would have been designed to support the breasts for the woman. So this is basically a dress that would act as your bra. There were a number of other period ways to support breasts, but this is one of them. So when we're doing this, it's important to understand that this is designed to be worn without a bra on, and so it needs to be fit without a bra as well. I use linen to do the fitting on these. I use actual linen, not linen look, because linen look is made out of cotton. Nothing moves and stretches the way that linen does. And in most cases, the underdress for this is going to be linen, whereas the coat RD for this, the overcoat that goes with this, could be made out of linen or silk or wool. But typically, the underdress, the kirtle itself, is made out of linen. So we're going to be going over. I'm going to be doing a fitting for my wife. She's going to be helping me out with this, and so there's a couple of things. I've made the body block right now, and that's ready to go, ready to put on her to do the fitting. So I'm going to show you what that looks like before we put it on, and some of the measurements I use to get to that. And this video is a supplement to the class I'm doing coming up on how to actually do patterning, and I'll have that available later after that class is done. So thanks for tuning in. Okay, so this is the body block that I'm going to be using to do this fitting with. It's basically shaped like her body. I used her measurements to get a basic guideline for what I want to start with. Some of the measurements that I use on this, this line right here, if you can see, this is the bust measurement. This is the under bust measurement. This is the natural waist. And there's also from the shoulder point to the nipple, and then from the nipple to the under bust, and then from the under bust to the waist, and then from the waist down to the hip. So this is going to be down to the hip. So the bust line right here, that's what gives me the curve for the arm. I also took a shoulder measurement here that is from the base of the neck to the point of the shoulder, which gives me this. That allowed me to kind of cut out a generic neckline here, which will I'll need to cut that more to be able to make the adjustments that I need, and then the actual neckline is going to be much deeper than that anyway. So that's the basic measurements I used, and this just gets as close so that I'm not using just a square or just a rectangle block that I have to cut everything out of. So these are measurements to just get me close enough. I made sure to use enough seam allowance on this this is sewn right here. Use enough seam allowance to give me room and I'll pin in closer as I need to go. One of the mistakes I often make when I'm doing this is I don't leave enough room at the bottom for the hips and whatever ass you might have. So I've kind of taken from the waist measurement here, rather than fitting it to the hip, I just give myself plenty of room on the end there, because when it's on, I want it to be able to close entirely around the back. Ultimately, the pattern is just going to be basically down to the waist, because that's the point where we start flaring the dress. But for the sake of patterning it, I like to have a little more room to kind of fit it as far down as necessary to do that. So this is the basic shape of it, and this is the front.
Enough!
Yeah, I can cut that out later.
Yeah. I just wanted you to stop talking so that...
Okay, do I need to go back and cover more?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So this is the front of it. I'm going to go ahead and open this up, give you an idea about what it looks like here. So as we open this up, this becomes the back, and I have it sewed on the sides, except for the arm's eye, and I have it sewed in the front. So we're actually going to put this on and pin it in the back, because we want to use that front seam to kind of help support the breasts as we're doing the fitting as well, so that it's just a little more structurally sound for doing the fitting. The back is just a straight line; it doesn't need quite as much support, so we put it on just like a hospital gown, and it looks big, but eventually it ends up being just it's going to be about, you know, just that much, again, down to the natural waist. So that's basically what the body block looks like to start with, and we're going to go ahead and put that on her and start the pinning process. Okay, so I've got the body block basically on, and one of the things I'm doing is I am pinning this in the back. Oh, it seems really high up there. I'll have to cut that. As I'm closing this in the back, one of the things I'm trying to make sure to do is make sure that this side seam is right in line with the side. So with this one, I'm going to maybe pull in just a little bit here, so I can do a sort of close fit on the back here. But this is just to kind of close up the back and make sure that I'm getting it pretty close, and you can see there is plenty of fabric here to work with, but I would rather have more than not have enough here. Turn this a little bit right there, and you can see this is right in the small of her back right there, so I'm trying to get that. Again, this is close, but it's not super tight at this point, because we're going to be making some adjustments on the sides where I'm going to be pulling this in here, and so I'll need some room there to give there. You can see that on this side, I've got, hang on a second. Okay, so you can see I've got this line here pretty close to the straight on the side there. So let's scooch this way just a little bit. And there is, throughout this whole process, quite a bit of me spinning her around and turning and stuff like that. So, and eventually what we're looking for when we get this is we want to have, I mean, except for the lines where I didn't iron it quite well enough, we're basically looking to have a smooth line coming down the back there, and when I get this all pinned in, you'll see it's get straightened out. So I'm going to take a look at the sides real quick, and I'm going to fit this up into the armpit just a little bit. Make sure the pin points go down.
Up here.
What?
They point up here, down there.
Okay, never mind. This one's pretty close. Hang on just a second.
Neckline.
Okay. So now we are going to adjust the shoulders. And you'll notice that when we start with this body block, it's a square shoulder over here, but the way that the neckline kind of, the shoulder line comes down, comes from the neck, and it comes down at an angle like this. So a lot of this here is going to be cut out, but this is where we so with pulling these shoulders up here, this is what's going to give you a large amount of the support. And eventually we're going to have this, and then the line underneath the breast that is going to do most of the support. So we want to pull these up at the shoulders, and we want to kind of have them as straight as we can on the shoulder line here. And one of the things about this particular method is there is some adjustment of the boobs to put them where they need to be. So I'm going to gather some here at the shoulder. We'll put a quick pin in both sides, and then we'll make an adjustment. So when she did the adjustment there, it pulled the dress forward for some reason. So we're gonna just pull this, because again we want this front part of this fabric to give that support. So I'm gonna pull this up a bit. Too. I don't know what happened there. So on the shoulder here, after we got the line on the boobs adjusted, that gave me a little more room up here to work with, and then the shoulder line was just a little too far forward this way. So what I did is I just kind of gathered it up here so that I can kind of pull this here so I can get the shoulder line a little more on the shoulder. Sorry, occupational hazard. No, it's actually pretty close. It's pretty close for that. Okay, so we've got this line here in the front going over the breast, and there's some shifting and adjusting. This area right here directly under the underbust, that's one of the really important parts here, because that's what gives you, it's going to give you that support on that line right there, and then after that fitting it close enough up here. But you can see I'm pretty happy with how straight these lines are on here and how smooth everything is on there. That's a pretty good fit. And as we made the adjustments in the back, or actually as we made the adjustments in the front, it started smoothing this out in the back, but now I'm going to kind of repin this to kind of get a straight line on this, and to kind of I've got a little bit of gap here at the small of the back. I'm just going to kind of clean that up just a little bit. And ideally, this pin line I want to try to make sure is going as much straight down the spine as possible. Oops. And at this point, most of the fit is already done. So I'm not necessarily trying to make this tighter. I'm trying to make it straighter. So that when I draw the lines for the back here, it's going as straight as we can. And again, I am pinning this all the way down past the small of the back, past the this is the small of the back right here. So I am fitting it down past the waistline, but eventually it's going to be the lining, or the pattern is going to be right at the natural waist right there. But I'm just closing this all up here so that I have, so if it's fit below, then that will give me what I need up top. So it can be kind of hard to see because there is so much fabric here. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm pretty happy with how straight that's coming down on that line right there. And again, you can see nice smooth lines on the back. We have this line here going reasonably well on the straight on the shoulder line. Same thing over here. Got a pretty good line on the shoulders there. And pretty good smooth lines on the front here.
So just a few tips for the people that are being patterned. You will get poked. And make sure you're standing in the posture that you want the dress to fit in. Because if you're standing with your shoulders hunched forward and they pattern it like that, that's how you're going to be held. So make sure that you roll your shoulders back when they're patterning so that you get the right lines.
So one of the things I love about this particular patterning method is once we've got most of the pinning in place, and at this point it is, actually let me hit a couple more pins in the front here. Ow! I get poked. I get poked too. Move again. So I just had to close that up right there. So again, we got most of the pinning in place right now. And one of the things that I really love about this patterning method is once it's fit, I get to literally draw the dress on her. I use, this is the chalk pencil that I'm using. This can be found in the quilting section of Joann's. They're kind of pricey, so use your 50% off coupon if you can. It's got these leads that come in here. It's just basically like a retractable pen or a pencil. This is my preferred tool for doing this for sure. So yeah, at this point, I just I'm going to draw the dress on. So one of the first things I'm going to do is we're looking for, we want to shape the shoulder seam here. So the way that this dress is designed, the sleeve head kind of goes over the shoulder point here. So we're not doing a sleeve at the point here. It's actually going to kind of be inset here just a little bit, so it kind of almost caps the shoulder. So turn this way. So what I'm going to do to find this line is I'm basically following the crease of the shoulder. So as I move her arm in here, you can see I get that crease right there. So get that there. I'm going to do the same on the back side, where I'm going to kind of pull the shoulder back just a little bit to find that crease. And then when I get the two lines for where that shoulder crease is, I just want to make sure that at the top of the shoulder here they match up front and back right there. And then I basically follow that shoulder line down here into the arm's eye, and the arm's eye is basically the armhole. And so on this one, and this is a fairly close fitting arm's eye as well. It's not restrictive, but because it's going around the shoulder like this, all of this area that you see here, which is going to be sleeve, that gives you room, that gives the arm room to move in there, because as opposed to here where it's pulling out. So all of this in here, you're basically giving it room to move. It's somewhat similar in that construction to the Charles de Blois the Grand Assiette shoulder. Not quite as pronounced, but same general idea. So I'm going to turn around back here. So you've got this line coming down here behind the shoulder, and then into the front there. So now I'm going to do the other side. Do the same thing. I'm going to turn this way. Just drop drop something.
Hmm?
Something just fell out of your head.
The pencil's still there, so I don't know what it was.
Now we're going to want these on each side. You want to get these lines as close to each other as you can, but I'm not too worried about these matching exactly on either with each other side, because that's going to come later when I do the composite, and that'll be in the class this weekend. Okay, so that's going to be the arm's eye. And then we're going to finish out the rest of the neck here. So, and again, with drawing this on as is, I'm going to be adding seam allowance later. So what I'm doing now is I'm drawing what the finished dress is going to look like at the end. So I'm giving this about 2 inches up on the shoulder, so that when it finishes, I'm going to have about a 2-inch gap between the sleeve point and the neckline there. About 2 inches.
There.
2 inches. That's close.
Okay.
Pretty close to 2 inches. Okay. I'm gonna do some over here. Okay. Now we figure out how far down we want the neckline to go. So, you know, I always like it down about this far here. She doesn't like it quite that much, so we're gonna a little bit higher up there.
Thanks, honey.
But yeah, this is where I'll get to draw a dress on her. Left-handed. So left-handed sometimes.
That's a little low.
Huh?
Oh, well, that's right.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna make it a little wider though. You don't have a mirror down here, do we?
Guess that's the next thing we need is a full length mirror down here.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's better.
So you can see there that as I drew those first lines on there, I wanted it to come out a little bit wider, so I drew another line on there, and then I just kind of use my finger to erase away the chalk marks there.
You have an eraser.
I do have an eraser.
And it actually works. But I'm having fun.
Okay. Again, I'm not too worried about these being symmetrical on either side, because we'll change that in the composite, and we will straighten out that line in the composite as well. Is that about right? I don't know if you can see. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's just a little tiny bit. I don't need it down to my... need all my tracks on.
Okay, reasonably happy with that. Okay, so now we're going to do the back neckline here as well. So I'd already made the mark from where the front one comes around this side. Do that over here as well, so that those line up. And usually for the back of the neckline on this, I usually end up putting it right about the fifth cervical vertebrae, which, interesting enough, is the one that we need to cover for heavy fighting. Which is right about here, so it's the base of her neck. So I'm just gonna take this line down here. And down here as well. And that way you can see as far up as this goes. I mean, that's way up in the base of her neck right there. But this right here, just a little bit lower. Lift your head up. So pull your shoulders back. So you can see when her head's up, it's going to be roughly right in here.
I just want to jump test.
Do you want to do the mouse test?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they know.
Do you want to do? Are you okay
Well,
filming that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Because I'm just.
So one of the things that we need to do to make sure that we have the support that we need for the breasts is we need to do what we call the bounce test.
Usually we do this before we get to the marking parts. We do it while we're doing the pinning.
Just to make sure that everything is in place and that it's going to give you the support that you need.
I feel silly.
This was your idea.
I just jump up and down and make sure they stay put. It should feel like you have a sports bra on, so everything should stay pretty well in place, which it did. So
There you go.
yeah.
Okay, so now that we have the front neckline done, the back neckline done, from here what we do is we want to make sure we're going to finish drawing in all the other lines because we're going to need those when we actually do the patterning. So I'm going to take this here, I'm going to do both sides of the shoulder. And with the pins being in here, these lines are going to be kind of sketchy, but again, I'm going to I will straighten those lines out when we do the when I do the patterning later. But again, it's important to have all of these lines marked on both sides. So here, coming down the spine, need to match that up. Even on the parts where we use the sewing machine to keep the block in place, we need to mark those lines too because the lines, the actual fitting, isn't where the stitch is. So yeah, with this being, you can see these lines are going to be all kind of crooked when we get on there. That gets fixed in post-production, as it were. Whoa. Okay. So again, the pattern will get fitted down to the natural waist, which is right about here, this is the original marking I did when I was measuring those out. So it's pretty close to where we want that to be. One of the things about this pattern type is you can make this whatever you want, and it's designed to be able to show off the things you want to show off and to hide the stuff that you want to hide. So if you have a little bit of belly fat and you want to cover that up, then you can start your pattern line, your waistline, a little bit higher, so that and then when we do the dress, you just make a flare on that and it just flares out from there, and then it just covers up what you don't want people to see.
Like that.
Kind of like that.
Only not that much.
So, and I am marking this all the way around the natural waist so that I have that line all the way around when I do the fitting, or when I do the patterning, as opposed to just marking it on the lines there. I'm going to mark this all the way around. And I kind of missed that, but okay. Then let's see here. This one's actually pretty close because the seam was. That's the nice thing about doing the sewed up seam right here. If you get that right, you don't need a whole lot of pinning in certain places because, you know, like I said, I tried to measure that so that it's pretty close to begin with, and still give me room so that I have extra pin if I need to. Pretty happy with it. For the most part. Okay, so just one more time and we'll spin around and see. So pretty smooth lines on the back here. Got a little tiny wrinkle there, but I'm not too worried about it.
The weight of the material.
Yep. And shoulder seams pretty well in line there. Side seams pretty well on the side there. Good smooth fit throughout the breast and down into the body there. Got all the lines marked. So that is pretty much the gist of the fitting. So stay tuned for the patterning class.
I don't know if you mentioned before, but make sure that you're using linen if at all possible, because your dress is going to be out of linen, and if you use cotton, it doesn't stretch and move the same way a linen does, so your pattern may be off a bit if you use cotton instead.
So at this point, I'm gonna unpin the back to pull that off. I'm gonna leave all the other pins in right now, so we don't have to worry about it all exploding. We just pull it off the back, and then I'll take the pins out and deal with that. Okay, so we've taken the body block off of her, and you see those are some of the lines we drew on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull all these pins out, and I'm going to try to kind of get this prepped a little bit. So again, we left the pins in to begin with. We put those lines in, so now we kind of need to deconstruct this. Kind of give you an idea about what everything looks like underneath the pins and everything. Okay. And we are going to use the seam ripper to take out the basting stitches that we put in here before. While I'm doing this, I'll mention too that this pattern is what is known as a 4-panel dress. So there's basically front and back, left and right, and it's all going to be one pattern piece. So we have one front pattern and we have one back pattern. And then we'll have one sleeve pattern, and they're all the same pattern. And again, we'll be going to do the patterning class later. You'll see how we make a composite off of these, and that there are other examples from period that are 10-panel, 12-panel. The Heraldney's dresses that have multiple panels in them. This is a 4-panel dress. This is the provenance for this kind of comes from the Queen Marguerite's golden gown, the Uppsala gown, and that is a 4-panel dress for Queen Marguerite. I want to say it's 14th century. I don't know the exact date on that. I'll have to look into that. It is worth noting, though, that dress, that 4-panel dress, was made for Queen Marguerite when she was 10 years old. So as far as fitting adults with the same patterning method, I don't have the information on that, but this is pretty typical patterning method, and it was used in period, at least at some point. Oh, this is one of the back pieces. This is the front piece that went with that. This is the other front piece. And the other back piece. So the first thing I'm going to do with these now is iron them out so that I'm working with flat surfaces, especially where, you know, we had the pins and where we had the basting stitches. So I'm going to iron this out. So now that we have all four pieces pulled apart and ironed out, you can see we have the lines on there are fairly light. So what we're going to do is I'm going to draw the lines on here, smooth them out a little bit, and darken up the lines a bit, and that'll let me transfer that later. Again, I'm not too worried about them being symmetrical from the left to the right, because when we do the patterning, I'm gonna do a composite of both of them. So right now, I'm drawing out the lines as they are, not as I want them to be. So. Again, with the exception that some of these lines, like right here in the bust where it's all sketchy, where the pins were, I'm just smoothing that line out a little bit. Okay, so I have darkened up the lines, straightened them out on the sides. These are the two front pieces. You can probably already see that there are some differences in how they are. Again, they're not symmetrical. They're pretty close to each other. So one of the first things that will be happening in the patterning process is making a composite of these two. And essentially what I would do is I'll take one piece and make these lines even heavier, and then I'll lay it on top of the other one, and I'll line up the pattern pieces this way, and then basically I'll just rub the one piece on, and what that does is it kind of transfers that chalk line onto the other piece. And then from there, the lines that are the same, I just strengthen those, and the ones that are a little bit off, I make a composite of the two. But that's something I'm going to be doing as part of the class this weekend, and that class will be available online later. But for now, that's as far as we're going to do today. And hopefully you have an opportunity to either take the class live, or if not, then come back and see you later. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mama.